Hey guys, Lynette here. So let's talk Game of Thrones. Where do I even begin? So if you caught on in my previous video, you'd probably guess what my second favorite show of all time is. It's Game of Thrones. Yes, I love Game of Thrones. So much so that I die inside every time I think about seasons 7 and 8. But that's the key. I don't think about it that much. George, please finish your damn series. What isn't there to like about Game of Thrones? Like, the political games played throughout the whole series. Varys and Littlefinger going at it. Tywin freaking Lannister. These are just a few of the things that make the show absolute peak. But anyway, in summary, Game of Thrones is a fantasy television series based on George R.R. Martin's series of novels, A Song of Ice and Fire. The show, set on a fictional continents of Westeros and Essos, intricately weaves together multiple plot lines involving noble families, kings, queens, knights, and others, all vying for power in a state of political intrigue and constant threat of war. At the core of the series is the Iron Throne, the seat of the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms, and the intense drama surrounding the claims to this throne. Parallel to the political battles, an ancient threat rises in the north beyond the Wall, and Daenerys Targaryen, the exiled last scion of a deposed dynasty, seeks to return and claim her rightful crown. The series is renowned for its complex characters, morally ambiguous narratives, and unexpected deaths of key characters, contributing to its widespread popularity and critical acclaim. So with the whole summary now out the way, here are 10 things that I loved about Game of Thrones. I must warn you, heavy spoilers ahead. So the first thing that I loved about Game of Thrones definitely has to be the giant world that is Essos and Westeros, aka the world building. The world of Westeros and beyond is segmented into distinct regions, each with its own geography, climate, and culture, from the icy tundras of the north and the vast bleak expanse of the Wall to the lush, temperate river run and the exotic sunny climates of Dorne and the free cities. This level of world building not only serves as a backdrop for the series' complex plot, but also adds a rich layer of depth and intrigue that enhances the storytelling, making the world of Game of Thrones feel vast, alive, and real. Essentially, Game of Thrones is just a big-ass story that has a lot of cool things in it. Just think of it like that. My second favorite reason why I love Game of Thrones are the characters. Just like my last video on One Piece, Game of Thrones just has really good characters. They have such complex characters, like in Game of Thrones, the main cast, think Daenerys, think Jon Snow, think Tyrion. Each has their own unique backstory that informs their decisions and evolution throughout the series. For example, Jon Snow's identity crisis and his ultimate role as a leader in the battle against the White Walkers is a major narrative thread. You also have really intriguing villains. Cersei, for example. Tywin, again, I bring him up. Spoiler alert, he's one of my favorite characters. They're all multifaceted individuals with understandable, if morally questionable, motivations. Cersei's fierce protection of her children and her power plays make her a compelling figure whom the audiences love to hate. To keep harping on this whole characters part, beyond humans, you also have different creatures, like mythical creatures and stuff. You have the White Walkers, the Night King, heck, even Melisandre, who was pretty cool, honestly. Okay, so speaking of characters, my third reason why I love Game of Thrones is actually going to be more of a top 5 character ranking. And this is in order, too. Number 1 is Tyrion. I really don't know what made me fall in love with this character as much as I did. I'm a huge sucker for super smart characters, and he's shown to be one of the smartest characters in the show. Think his strategic maneuvers when he was defending King's Landing from Stannis' forces with the whole wildfire that he did. Amazing. Number 2, Jaime Lannister. If you were paying attention in the last video, I mentioned how I thought Jaime Lannister had one of the best character arcs, in my opinion. And I'm going to keep harping on that. Number 3, Tywin Lannister. I think I know he's my favorite villain from the show. His Machiavellian approach to everything, hell, his aura alone is just enough to have anyone in the show just shake in fear. All of that accumulated makes him, to me, one of my favorite characters in the show. Number 4, Robb Stark. I love Robb. He was just such a prodigy, you know? He had all the momentum going for him during the war. But then the Red Wedding happened. Probably the most tragic, saddest thing that could have happened in the entire show. Because I was rooting for Robb 1000%. And last but not least, number 5, Varys. What isn't there to like about Varys? The man knew everything. He had his little birdies all over the world. His complex web of information that he built from the ground up to get to the point where he was at in the show. So yeah, that was my top 5, guys. Moving on to the next one. The 4th reason why I love Game of Thrones definitely has to be the ending of season 1. More specifically, that misdirection that they did. You can't tell me that the end of season 1 was one of the best, demonstrations of misdirections you've ever seen. You go on in the entire season in Ned's point of view. You believe he is the protag of the show. He was just such a just character. He was loyal, only to have all of that cut short. See what I did there? And then there's the fact that while it's all going on, you're thinking in your head, you're like, there's no way that's going to happen. There's no way they're going to kill off Ned. There's no way. Something's going to happen. Someone's going to intervene. Something's going to happen. And then when it happens, you're just left there shook. What the hell did I just watch? Probably one of the best moments in TV, I'm not going to lie. It definitely set the tone for the rest of the show. Number 5, the show just has such diverse and beautiful locations. It definitely has some of the best scenery that I've ever seen. The sets look so great. Then there's all the shots of all the mountains and all the houses and all the buildings. Oh, it was just shot so masterfully. From what I looked up in a quick Google search, I saw they filmed in multiple places like the United Kingdom, Iceland, Spain, Morocco, Croatia, and Malta. And I'm glad they did because it all came out so perfectly. So the next reason why I love Game of Thrones, aka number 6, is the intro. God, I love that intro. I'm a huge anime watcher, so intros are a big thing, especially for us anime heads, you know? Openings are in anime are really good. So to have one that's really good as well in live action show, oh God, I loved it. Whoever composed that intro, oof, they cooked. And the visuals are amazing. So I recently watched Shogun, and I was thinking to myself that the intro for Shogun is actually very similar to the intro of Game of Thrones. Am I the only one who thinks that? I can't be the only one who thinks that. But I like that one too, by the way. Definitely going to make a video on that another day. Number 7, the political intrigue. What I mean by this is much of the drama revolves around political maneuvering, alliances, betrayals, and power plays. This might be my favorite part about the show. All of the schemes, all of the backstabbing, all of it just makes the show really fun to watch. It's funny because a show I thought would follow this route was Vinland Saga towards the end of season 1. By the way, spoilers, minor for Vinland Saga. I thought they were going to do some Game of Thrones scheming moments until they said screw all that, and boom, it all went downhill from there. But that was at the end of season 1, when they were all in that one building, with... Yeah. Don't want to spoil it too bad. I recommend Vinland Saga. Vinland Saga is really good. If you're watching this and you like anime, Vinland Saga, amazing. Masterpiece. So the next reason why I love Game of Thrones, number 8, I just really love fantasies. Game of Thrones has it all. Dragons, White Walkers, magic. Some of my favorite stories of all time are fantasies. One Piece. Heck, I even love Harry Potter. Just want to show off our boy Dumbledore here. Nice little pop figure. Yeah, I like Harry Potter. But you get my point. I love being lost in these fantasy stories because I believe it leads to some of the best creativity when it comes to writing. But that's not to say that a story has to be a fantasy for it to be peak or just good, you know what I mean? Not at all. In fact, some of my favorite stories aren't even fantasies at all. There's this anime that I really love. It's called Monster, which I recommend, of course. And it's relatively grounded to reality. And if that still isn't real enough, then my third favorite show of all time, that includes movies, TV shows, and anything like that, is something that's a little bit more real. and there's no fantasy at all. In fact, it's actually going to be the topic for my next video. So definitely subscribe so you can watch that video, if you're interested, of course. The next reason why I really love Game of Thrones, so number 9, are the high production values. This is everything from costumes to special effects. I love the costume designs of this show. Everything just looked great. There was really never a moment when I was thinking to myself like, he's wearing a costume. A really bad example of this was the One Piece live action. Quick side note, it was a good show. Great season, I liked it. The only thing I didn't really like with it is that the costumes were a bit too clean, and it just looked more so like they were cosplaying their characters instead of it looking like it was real clothing that they would have. It was just too clean, as in like there was no dirt on it, like it just didn't look good. Whereas in Game of Thrones, you never once thought that. It takes you out of the experience when you see that it looks like just like a cosplay and it just doesn't look right. So that's why I really appreciate the way Game of Thrones really did that. Last but not least, number 10, the epic battle scenes. In anime, we call this the Sakuga moments. I loved the battle scenes in Game of Thrones. For the most part, they cooked in their battle scenes. For the most part. Do you guys remember the Battle of the Bastards? Oh my god, that scene with Jon Snow? Come on, man. So yeah, now that you guys know how much I love Game of Thrones, I have to address the elephant in the room. Yes, season 7 and 8 are terrible. Terrible. Probably some of the worst writing I've ever seen in my life. They butchered what probably could have been the best piece of fiction of all time. Yes, when I say that, I even would put it above One Piece, which is my current number 1 of all time. But that ending will forever taint the show for me. That is until George finally finishes this series. Now you're probably wondering, if I hated the last 2 seasons so much, how is it still so high? It's number 2 all time on my list. How can you have Game of Thrones that high when you have 2 consecutive seasons that are really bad? And not just any seasons, they're the ending. Well, you see, I don't care. Those last 2 seasons, to me, they don't even exist. I just love seasons 1 through 6 that much. But in all seriousness, I just think that seasons 1 through 6 are that good, and I am very forgiving for season 7 and 8. That's not to say that I don't think it's like bad or anything. I'm just more so kind of pushing them to the side, you know? But anyways, thanks you guys so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed listening to me ramble. What did you guys think of Game of Thrones? Did you think it was trash? Did you think it was mid? Did you think it was peak? Please let me know in the comment section below. And definitely don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and dislike if you dislike. Peace.